It's time for the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel Podcast.
We've got lots and lots of things to talk about and to do today. Covering the territories from the 1940s to the 1990s.
It's the best thing going today.
Interviewing wrestlers, referees, authors, and other media personalities that have made the sport of professional wrestling great.
The cream, yeah. The cream of the crop.
And now, here's your host, Tony Richards.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel Podcast. We are originating from the Richards Ranch in western Kentucky. I'm your host, Tony Richards. So glad to be back with you again today and have you here with us. We got a great guest and a great show lined up for you on today's podcast. But before we get to that, I've got a lot of things to cover here. Just some FYIs for you, because I know so many of you like all the things we do. So I want to let you know a little bit about some things going on here. Our audio version of our show is now on all the major platforms where you get your audio podcasts. So check wherever you get yours, whether it's Apple Podcast or if it's all of them. I mean, there is a long list of platforms that we are now involved with that are distributing our show out to you. So you shouldn't have any trouble finding the audio version of our show. And we've got show number 28 on there, which was last week's show with the Q&A. And also, I want to tell you, we may have episode 27 up by now, which is the Hall of Fame episode with my great panel of experts that came on with me to talk about their particular favorites for the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. And so those 26 or 27 previous episodes covering 1975, we will get those up and out to you as we go here through the end of the year. Our producers are working on that. You can still see all of our shows, both audio and video, at our Substack channel, Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel, and the video version is available on our YouTube channel, Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel on YouTube, so you can see all our shows there. Now, I hope you could catch my latest guest appearance on the Voices of Wrestling flagship Patreon podcast. I had a great time over there with Rich and Joe. And I think it was probably my best job. I did a better job of pitching Roy Welch and his case for the Hall of Fame on the Voices of Wrestling show than I did my own show. But we had 2 hours of nothing just but me as the guest. And I went through all 7 of the people on my Wrestling Observer ballot for non-wrestler category. So that's a great show. Look it up, Voices of Wrestling on the flagship Patreon podcast. That would be the October 14th show. Also, coming up tomorrow night, which this is Wednesday, and we always release our show on Wednesday. Tomorrow night, on Thursday, October 30th, I'm going to be on the WFIA podcast show with several of my friends. I think George Shire's going to be there. I think Wes Maidment's going to be there. I think Terry Sullivan's going to be there. And some people I haven't met before that I'm really looking forward to, where we do the Wrestling Historians Hollywood Squares. And so I'm really, really looking forward to being on the WFIA show again. And I will give you details on where you can catch that once we get it out, and I'll be on next week's podcast here at the Time Tunnel. I'll tell you a little bit where you can find that, or you can just search for WFIA podcast show Hollywood Squares. I've got an article on the Substack that I released last week that details my thoughts about Roy Welch being worthy of being elected into the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. It's called Roy Welch, a True Pioneer and a Wise Architect. And it goes from Roy's upbringing in Oklahoma to his training in Amarillo to Ohio to he has started working his way south from Ohio, and he starts seeing and getting the idea after he's seen West Texas and after he's seen Ohio and he's seen how these guys are doing things. He starts to put together the first territory in this area that I'm coming to you from right now. And so it outlines all my thoughts about Roy Welch, and you should check that out. Roy Welch, a true pioneer and a wise architect. I have another article that should be out by now that's advocating for George Scott to be elected into the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame in the non-wrestler category. And that article is called George Scott, a Master Booker of Transition. And George, of course, the mastermind behind the transition of Jim Crockett Promotions from a tag team territory to a singles-based territory in 1973. He had an amazing run. He had to deal with the 1975 plane crash where he lost his two top heels. And so and then he also booked the first part of the national expansion with Vince McMahon and the WWF. He booked the first couple of WrestleManias. And so I cover all that. It's George Scott, a Master Booker of Transition, my article on George and the reasons why he should be in the Hall of Fame. I've been doing a salute to territory-era television wrestling show commentators on my social media channels, on X, formerly known as Twitter, in the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel Facebook group. Every day in October, I've listed a territory-era television wrestling show commentator. And so for the rest of the year, starting in November, so in November and December, I'm going to release a full-length article on each one of those 31 television announcers in the territory era. And we're going to end up the year with a bang this year, folks. I mean, a couple of really special shows. I'm working on a special Thanksgiving spectacular show that I'm working on that's going to cover some of the Thanksgiving shows in 1975 with some of my special experts and guests. We're working on that. And I'm trying to fish up some deep research for another special series on the Stories with Briscoe and Bradshaw show. That will be coming in November as well. So November and December, look forward to those months as we wrap up the year this year. It's been a great year here in the Time Tunnel, and it's all because of you and your support. You watch, you listen, you like, you subscribe, you share. Some of you even contribute to my work as a historian. And I want you to know, no matter what you do, even if you're just a member that just sort of lays back and doesn't participate, but you just enjoy what we do, hey, if you signed up for just a membership in the Facebook group, I don't care. As long as you're involved in the Time Tunnel, I appreciate you, and I really, really thank you. Okay, today's show is going to be fantastic. Dave Dynasty is here at the Richards Ranch, and we are going to cover the WWA from Indianapolis, Indiana, that territory in the year 1975. Now, listen, I'm down near Paducah in the western part of Kentucky. This is where I grew up. I moved to Missouri for 32 years. I just moved back this summer. I talked about that on some of our shows previously. But, and I'm about a year younger. I think I'm a year younger than Jim Cornette. And Cornette has talked about when he discovered the WWA from Indianapolis. Now, he could see it because he's in Louisville, and he could pick up one of the stations. I think he saw a repeat of the show like late at night or something, and he started watching it. I'm 220 air miles southwest of Louisville in Paducah, so I didn't get any of those television shows because the signal wasn't strong enough from Indianapolis to reach all the way down here. And Goulet Welch had taken over Evansville, Indiana, so there wasn't really a southern Indiana town that was carrying it where I could see it. And they didn't run in southern Illinois, so I didn't get to see it from there. So I saw none of the WWA at the time. But now I get to relive it, and I've watched a lot of the tape. I've read both the Bruiser book and the Wilbur Snyder book, so I'm pretty familiar with it now that I'm in my older years as a wrestling fan and a wrestling historian. And I couldn't think of anybody better than the host of the Wrestling Nostalgia podcast, Dave Dynasty, to come on and talk about the WWA in 1975. So let's go to that visit and conversation with Dave Dynasty right now. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel podcast. I'm your host, Tony Richards, and tonight, From the Richards Ranch, I'm joined by the dynamic, wonderful Dave Dynasty from his show Wrestling Nostalgia. Dave, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you.
I can't wait till we're going to talk about your favorite wrestler of all time, who just happened to own half of the promotion we're going to talk about tonight, the WWA.
That's right. Yep. That and Dick the Bruiser. I'm ready.
You
always like to talk.
You were telling me off air, and I cut the conversation off because I wanted to save it for the show. But you grew up in you grew up a Hoosier, man.
I did. Born and raised in Columbus, Indiana, which is pretty south central, but it's pretty cool. It's close to Indianapolis, close to Cincinnati, close to Louisville. It was a good place because from there I could get I got the Louisville feed of the Memphis tapes on our from there. We were close enough to Louisville, and then of course we got Bruiser. And then, everything, it was national after that. But, grew up there, born and raised for 40 years. That's where I lived there before I moved. So the majority of my life, spent in Indiana.
I moved back here to the Richards Ranch. The Richards Ranch is new. I just bought it. But I moved back here to the ranch next door to my mom and dad's place to look after my mom. And it's only appropriate that a Kentucky boy and an Indiana boy would be on here together today. So.
That's right. I was only a few minutes from IU, maybe 30 minutes from IU. I grew up an IU fan, IU basketball.
Yeah, so I grew up. I'm probably a few years older than you, but I grew up right in the heat of the Indiana-Kentucky. I was watching on television the day Bobby Knight slapped Joe B. Hall in the back of the head and knocked his glasses off. And man, it was on. It was on after that. And what people didn't realize was they were really good friends.
Yeah. That was. I remember. being an IU basketball fan, there's certain you want to beat Purdue all the time. Mm-hmm. Purdue and then Kentucky, and it's like those are the teams no matter what you wanted to get those wins.
I mean, those guys were great basketball coaches, but they were also great showmen. They were great. They would have made great wrestling promoters because they knew how to get the fans stirred up, and they kept that rivalry going for years and years and years.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
So Columbus, Indiana is just right there close to the epicenter of where the WWA ran, right? So Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Louisville, those were all WWA towns, and then even Evansville was a WWA town until Dick and Wilbur stopped running it.
And they did come to Columbus semi regularly. We had a car dealership in Columbus, Bill Dunphy Chevrolet, and Bruiser must have known Bill Dunphy. They must have been friends because Bruiser would come and do appearances almost every year, like clockwork. He would come and appear on the car a lot, and then there would be a wrestling show with Bill Dunphy. So, and then they did all the silly try to slam Moose Cholok type things, and as part of that. So, he came to Columbus pretty regularly too. And then there was a little town really close to Columbus, 5 minutes. That's where my grandma lived, called Edinburgh, and they even every so often ran shows at the Edinburgh High School. And I don't recall it, but that was my first wrestling show ever. Was my grandma taking me to a Bruiser show at Edinburgh? I was too young to remember.
What year would that have been, Dave?
I don't know. It would have been late 70s. I was born in 75, so it probably would have been, I'm guessing 78, 79 when I was 3 or 4. Yeah. Is my guess. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
She took me. She was an avid wrestler. She's the one that got me started watching wrestling.
Well, as I told you when I talked with you about coming on today, I'm a big fan of your show. But tell me, and we talked a little bit about getting guests and all that before we went on. But tell me a little bit about how you decided to do a wrestling podcast.
Well, I actually have a wrestling background. I wrestled for 6 years in Central Indiana, just small stuff. But I did get out to Chicago a few times, things like that. But I wrestled. Well, I started as a manager, ended up wrestling. And then had an injury to my neck, which still bothers me. I've had 2 fused discs in my neck, which I have to have surgery on again, which kind of ended that. So then after that, I transitioned, and I actually for a while ran some shows in that part of the area. Mm-hmm. And then when that kind of when I got away from that, I wanted to be involved. I still wanted to be part of wrestling somehow. I wanted to have my toes in it.
Sure.
I was always a talker. Right, that's what I was known for. I wasn't a very good wrestler, But I could talk. I could get heat. I could make people mad, because I could talk. And I like talking. I like talking to people. I like hearing stories. So I developed this mindset of, okay, well, I'm going to do this podcast. I want to do it focused on Midwest wrestling. When I started, it was just, Midwest wrestling thing.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have, some of the legends. At that time, I was getting a lot of some of the young guys too that were in the area. And it's like, I want them on, tell their stories, document this historically. That's I thought, some of the legends, they're getting older. I want to have them on. I want to get to talk to them, hear them tell their stories before it can't be done. And then early on, I tried to, I plugged a lot of Midwest wrestling and a lot of wrestlers, had a lot of young guys, which was great. I loved it. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people I knew at that time just coming out of wrestling, but over time that kind of phased out, and it just became more that focus of preserving, the wrestling history. And it focuses a lot on the Midwest, and when I can get guys from that, that area, but it's not solely that, right? It's now I'm more, it's in the name, right? It's wrestling nostalgia,
Right.
It's that remembering the past, remembering what we loved about wrestling, guys we loved, and my goal is to always get guys that don't often get to tell their stories. I love first time guests. I love getting guys that are first time guests, and I've had a few, and I love that because I want guys on to tell their story that people haven't heard, and I want them. I've had a lot of guys from the WWA, especially the late years WWA, that don't get a lot of attention.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And people don't remember, right? And I, but they're great talents, right? The Dr. Jerry Graham Jr.'s, the Chris Carters, the great Wojos, all these guys they're great talents, and they have great stories to tell.
I loved your show with Jerry Graham Jr. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
very good. And I also I told you before we went on that I'd heard it one time before, but when the great Wojo passed away,
Yeah.
and I wrote my article about him for my Substack, Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel, I went back and listened to your show.
Yeah.
And just wonderful, and so thankful that you were able to have him on before we lost him.
Me too. And yeah, Jerry's become a really good friend. I've had him on many times. He's had times where he's called me and he's like, Dave, I got something I got to talk about, and I want to talk about. Can I come on your show? Like when the Dark Side of the Ring about Jerry Graham Sr. came out.
Oh yeah,
he called me like the next day, and I want to come on, and I want to counter this a little bit. I want to tell some of the positives about Doctor. And I was like, that's great, let's do it.
Yeah.
And there for a while, me and him were doing an actual kind of a sub show within mine called Graham's Gallery, where I had him on to talk specific. A lot of people don't know Jerry had a TV taping with the WWF, where he managed John Studd and a couple other people. It didn't work out, and we talk about that and talk about lots of things.
You mean he had it in the expansion years in the 80s?
It was about I think it was 84.
Yeah.
I think it was just slightly pre-WrestleMania. I'll have to go back. It was one taping, and
I didn't realize that's interesting.
He did, and they gave him a different name, like Mad Dog Maganoff, or I can't remember the exact name. They gave him a different name.
Oh,
and they gave him some instructions of don't talk over your guys. So it was difficult for him. I still say Dr. Jerry Graham Jr. should have had more opportunities because he is a very intelligent man. He is an unbelievable talker, and he has a great mind for the business. And understands it. So, Jerry and I became friends, and through Jerry, because Jerry's close friends with Wojo.
Yeah.
And that's how I got in touch with Wojo. I pestered Jerry about Wojo. And he was always, I don't know, he keeps to himself. He doesn't do a lot. I'm like, Jerry, just ask him. If he says no, he says no. And I don't know what Jerry did. Jerry, I apparently put in a good word. Because next thing I know, Jerry's saying, "Well, Wojo says if I'm good with if you're good with me, he's good."
Yeah.
So I got his number, and then I got to talk to Wojo. We set it up. It was fun because Wojo was completely technology ignorant. He had no idea. He didn't understand Zoom. He didn't understand any of that. I did a WWA kind of a round table type thing with like 5 or 6 guys, and Wojo was supposed to be a part of that. For the life of us, we couldn't get Wojo on. He was trying to come on. I was trying to, so he had no clue. So I'm so thankful we got it to work out, and I got to talk to him. He was great to talk to, right? He doesn't. he's not done. I don't know if he's done any other podcasts. Maybe he has. Maybe with the amateur wrestling background.
I couldn't find him out there on anybody.
I don't think. I don't think he's done.
No.
Especially where he gets to talk about his pro career.
Such an impressive fellow with all the way he taught school and helped kids and had the wrestling programs in the high school and college.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, had that amateur background, should have been an Olympian, or was an Olympian, but we boycotted the game, so should have been there. Was just great. Was a great amateur wrestler. Carried that over into the pros. He should have. Again, another guy probably should have gotten more opportunity. But it is what it is. It was that time. But Wojo's again one of those talents maybe not everybody's familiar with, and they should be. Yeah, he deserves more attention. So that's why that's the kind of guy I like to talk to.
And Jerry Graham Jr.
Definitely.
It just sort of reminds me. Some of the podcast had Gorgeous George Jr. on before he passed away, and that was wonderful too because he was another performer that was, he was a mid to upper card guy in the 70s. That the 70s, and that's one of the reasons I focus on it somewhat, is because it's an overlooked decade that really, really had a lot of great wrestling in it, and so
I'm sorry, and I mean, the WWA in the 70s, because most people remember the WWA for the 80s.
Oh, of course.
Because that's where most of the film footage is. There's more episodes. And when you look at it, it's meek, right? The attendance is not where it was. There are some periods where they use copycat talents and things like that. To me, I find the highlights. I find the good stuff. And so there's still things there, but that's what most people know it for.
And all the guys are a lot older. And
they are, and they were still using those guys.
Yeah.
But again, people say that, people laugh at that. I'm telling you, being from Indiana, everybody in the state of Indiana knows who Dick the Bruiser is. Everybody in the state of Indiana has it. My dad did not like wrestling. He hated wrestling. Me and him would argue about wrestling. But yet my dad went to professional wrestling cards in Columbus, Indiana, because he wanted to see Dick the Bruiser. My dad has a Dick the Bruiser story, because my dad was a police officer, about pulling Dick the Bruiser over in Columbus, Indiana, speeding. And Bruiser pretty much talking him out of a speeding ticket by showing him the championship belt in his trunk and talking to him. And my dad let it. So even my dad, who swore he hated wrestling, liked Dick the Bruiser. He was one of those guys who said, "Oh, this is all fake." But that Dick the Bruiser guy, he's a badass.
Yeah.
He'll kick your tail. And everybody in Indiana is like that.
Larry Matuszek used to tell a story all the time about he was at a press club in St. Louis with Sam Mushnick, and that guys would say, "Oh, my son or my daughter likes your show. They watch your wrestling show all the time, and they really like it and all that." And then he'd talk to him a little while longer. He goes, "We really were surprised that Bulldog Bob Brown gave Jack Briscoe such a great match last week." And Sam would lean over to Larry and go, "Closet fan."
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that, again, with Bruiser using those guys into those years, were they the greatest, at that time? Were they past? Yeah, they're past their prime. But people still came to see Dick the Bruiser. People still came to see Bobo Brazil.
Again, it's one of those things where you're the owner. This happens to bookers a lot too.
Yes.
You're the owner, and you got everything you own invested in this business. Yep. And it's hard not to put yourself on top and keep yourself there, because you can count on yourself.
That's right.
And
you'll
feel
be
like
there.
You still draw people and sell tickets, and
yes,
it's tough. It's hard.
Yeah. Now I'm not blind to the fact that maybe Bruiser should have bumped himself down the card a little bit. He had some young talent that could have stood out a little more, and he didn't. He worked with Jerry Jarrett in '82. There was issues there because Bruiser made decisions, changed cards, put himself on top, put himself over Kamala when he wasn't supposed to in Fort Wayne. And Jerry said, "That's it. I'm not going to work with you anymore." Bruiser had that. Bruiser was a draw, but I don't think, maybe Bruiser didn't grasp it. He could still be a draw and be in the mid card.
Not even his own family. I mean, Spike was a young up and comer, a good looking guy, and had a lot of potential and all, but he still didn't get past Dick.
Nope, he didn't. I mean, they had Spike and Steve Regal as the young Lions. They were a very talented young team, and had that potential, right, to be, because they were more modern,
right.
And then you had some other guys, right? El Bracero for that time was a more modern style. He had a little bit of a lucha mix in there for the 80s, right? It's not crazy, but he wouldn't kind of step aside, back down, let these guys truly shine. He has his faults.
I remember, all people do. We tend to be more critical of people we think are famous or semi-famous or whatever, but
that's right.
I mean, they're still human beings, as you and I talked earlier.
Yep. And it's hard to argue, right? It's Bruiser's money, so it's hard to argue with what he's doing. I mean, it's his money.
I mean, he's the one that's risking it all.
That's right.
I saw El Bracero at, I can't remember the towns I saw him in, but I saw him in ICW because he came down and worked with Paphos a couple of times. But
he did. Yeah.
So good talent.
He did. He actually got around quite a bit. I've had him on the show a couple times. He's a great guy. He's worked around a little bit.
Dick the Bruiser we were talking about, I mean, he wasn't just everybody in Indiana knew who he was, but I mean, he was one of the top. I just had Herb Simmons on here a couple of weeks ago. He was over in St. Louis, and he was over in Chicago. I mean, the shows they did promoted with Vern in the 70s. I mean, he had the Midwest. I mean, even on shows he didn't own, I mean, he had the market on the top spot.
Yeah. And people, again, Bruiser's one of those where a lot of people remember the late years, but they don't, Bruiser started in the late 50s into the 60s. I mean, he was huge in California, LA. That's where, he kind of split off the WWA when he won the title from the Destroyer in Los Angeles, brought it to Indiana, said, I'm the world, I'm the champ. But Bruiser had a great run in New York before he got banned for a brawl. And, Bruiser did spots in Memphis, in Alabama, down in that way. I mean, Bruiser was an attraction everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And when, he wrestled in Detroit for the Sheik when they weren't, battling head to head. He was withdrawing in Detroit, and he was a draw. He knew it, and but it's that victim of the videotape days, right? A lot of these guys, that's what a lot of them are. There's either no videotape of them because they were prior to the VCR days, or what this is captured is their waning years. So that's what people get in their mind, and what they remember.
Well, and Dick was more of a brawler, and as he aged, he became more of one. I mean, if you go back and watch the Vern Gagne and Dick the Bruiser match from the 50s, it's on YouTube. But if you go back and watch that Kohler match, I mean, Dick is bumping his butt off. I mean, he's got a lot of speed. He's around the ring. He's agile. He's bumping hard. I mean, that's the thing is, if you don't have the video evidence, to your point about the video bias, if you don't have the video evidence, the only impression you have is what you do see.
That's right.
And by that time, a lot of the guys are in the tail end of their careers, and now recency bias takes over, and you think, well, they've always been that way, and they weren't.
That's right. Nope, absolutely. That's what, and again, it's, a lot of people see Dick the Bruiser in his 50s or in, almost 60, and doesn't bump, doesn't sell much. And that's what they think Dick the Bruiser was. And it's not true. That is just, the late years of Dick the Bruiser, kind of cashing in or phoning it in. But that's not who he was most of his career.
In 75, the year we're going to talk about today, in 75, when they were running Indianapolis, and sometimes, I think in 1 month I saw they ran it 3 times in a month. They primarily ran once a month. Sometimes they run twice a month, but in, I think, May, we'll know when we get there, but they ran 3 times. It must have been almost a 6-week month or something. They ran the Indiana Convention and Exposition Center. Are you familiar with that building?
It's the expo's on the State Fairgrounds, and it's I believe it's the building now that the Indianapolis Ice, I'm not sure what the hockey team plays. It's still there, but it's and then I believe that's the building they always advertised it was air conditioned, right? Because it was the newer building.
Yeah, at that time, sure.
Yeah, it was one of the newer buildings. But yeah, that's lots of events happen there, especially with the state fair.
I mean, nowadays, people, when they think of Indianapolis, they think of Market Square Arena. But back in those days, in 75, the Indiana Convention Expo Center was the building they ran. And they consistently, I looked up their attendance in 75. They had a couple of months where they drew 6,000 or 7,000, but they consistently drew 9,000 to 11,000 people in that building for most of 1975. So in 75, I mean, they still were pretty hot. And the other thing I noticed too for the Indianapolis cards is, you know, when you go back and you study wrestling history, you can see the 50s, it was pretty much a 3-match card. In the 60s, it was pretty much a 5-match card. But in 1975, they were running 9 to 11 matches on a card in Indianapolis. So that means they're running 22 to 25 guys on a show in Indianapolis. I mean, that was what you wouldn't see that until you got into the Starcades and WrestleManias. You know, Graham started doing that in Florida in the late 70s. But, I mean, Bruiser really has what people nowadays would call a loaded show. They would pretty much be running that monthly in Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm. They would, and Bruiser is a little unique, right? Because these shows he filmed for TV, and he didn't do, by this time he wasn't doing studio shows, right? He was filming these cards. They would advertise, you know, right over the main event or whatever. Oh, it won't be shown on TV. You know, that's one of their selling points at this time. But these were the matches they were showing and airing on TV later, were these big cards, and you know, so that was Bruiser's approach. But yeah, he was again through the 70s. The WWA they were a powerhouse. Now 75 was right there, pretty peak time. You get into 76, that's where the decline kind of starts. But 75 is, you know, right at their peak. Where they're firing on all cylinders.
All the territories started crumbling somewhat after 75.
Sure.
75 was a very pivotal year. It was the year Mushnick retired as president of the NWA. It was the year, I mean, prophetic things to come. It was the year that Vince Sr. started bringing Vin Jr. to the NWA meetings. It was it was the year that TBS uplinked for the first time to bring satellite and cable out to some other markets. So people were starting to get exposed to other wrestling, which always kind of hurt the home territory, because these are guys you've seen for a long time, and typically your territory was tailored to you. But you just can't help it. When you see something different and new, you automatically, most of the time, assign better to it for whatever reason. So when you start seeing these guys out of Atlanta and you start seeing this other stuff, you're like, oh, this is different. I like this. You know, whether it was any better or not, I don't know. But you just get a little bias in there. Hedonic adaptation, you know, it's like when you first buy a car, you polish it, you keep it up, you don't want anybody eating or smoking in it or anything like that, and 2 years later it's just your car, you know. Or a nice picture in your living room, you know? But a year later you're just walking past it. Like
that's right. And some of that new exposure in the mid-70s helped the WWA. Jim Cornette has often said, right, when the early to mid-70s, when he discovered the WWA on TV coming, you know, in Louisville, and some of his answers, that he saw it in these arenas that they were filming at with almost 10,000 people. And he thought, whoa, this is big time, right? This is not studio. They don't have 100 people there. Look at this. And so it was that image of the packed, you know, arena. He made it, to him, it felt big time. It felt bigger.
Sure. And you know what's ironic about that is Indianapolis is the city where studio wrestling started.
Right.
So Jim Barnett, you know, the production truck that went to film the arena show broke down, and so Barnett moved the taping to the studio, And then he thought this is a lot cheaper to just do it at the television station, and we don't have to move these heavy cameras and all that. So when Bruiser reversed that and went back to the arenas, it was all of a sudden a brand new thing again. And it was, it was 15 years after people were used to seeing the cards out of Chicago and Hollywood.
Yeah.
Everything old is new again in wrestling,
Yeah, some of the Indianapolis studios, it's fascinating to me, being from Indiana, some of the people involved, right? Because you had Chuck Marlowe calling a lot of these. Well, Chuck Marlowe later was the voice of IU basketball and called IU basketball. We had Bob Carter, who was doing interviews on some of those. Well, we didn't know it at the time, but later became Sammy Terry, our Indianapolis, horror host.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's fascinating in retrospect when you look at that, the people that were involved with that. And some of that, it carries on, right? Because Bruiser always used a lot of local guys, kind of guys tied in that. And with Ty guys, he used Sam Mineker to feud with Bobby Heenan early on, and everything else. But
who was the regular announcer for the show, Dave?
It was Sam Mineker. In the 70s, it was Sam Mineker.
Okay. That's what I thought. But I just wanted to confirm, because you were throwing out some other names there, and my ears were perking up, because I'm interested in the commentators. As a matter of fact, all this month I'm doing a commentator from a territory every day on my social media, because they're so critical to the show. And there's so many commentators. I mean, everybody knows Lance. Everybody knows Gordon. A lot of people know Larry Matuzik, but there's so many people that people have never seen, because we don't have their tapes.
With Indianapolis, Chuck Marlowe was that early guy, right? That predates a lot of people. He was that too. Yeah. But most people that know Indianapolis wrestling, it's one of two guys, right? There's Sam Mineker, who was the guy through pretty much the entire 70s up to the early 80s. And then after Sam, it was David McLean. David McLean, who obviously went on, to form Goulet and everything else. So he was the guy after that, right? And then when it got into Bruiser Bedlam with those last years, it was Terry Sullivan, who was an announcer for the Sheik in Detroit for many, many years in the 70s and 80s. So Bruiser didn't have a lot of turnover in that commentator, but through the 70s, especially the mid 70s, it was all Sam Mineker. He was the face. He was the guy we saw. He was on. They would film the promos, their interviews, right? That they would do those. They did those in studio, and they did those on Tuesdays. And it was still Mineker was there doing those. So it was all Sam Mineker was the face of the WWE at that time.
Indianapolis is the largest city in the state of Indiana, so obviously that was the town to be based out of, or have the booking office in, or whatever. And it's over 800,000, between 800 and 900,000. Population probably fluctuates a little bit, but it's right in there. Little bit bigger than Nashville. I think it's market number 47 in the country, something like that. When I was in the broadcasting business years ago, I could quote the top 100 markets to you, but it's right in there in the 40s, like Louisville, Nashville, some of those. Then the second biggest city in Indiana is Fort Wayne. Did they run Fort Wayne regularly too?
Yep, they ran Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne was a regular stop for them. Terre Haute was a regular stop. Muncie, they ran Muncie pretty regularly, and then it was like these other towns that were kind of spot town, right? Like, they did run Hammond quite a bit, which is just outside of Chicago,
the hometown of the Funks.
Mm-hmm.
Hammond, and then Indiana. What about South Bend?
They did, they would run South Bend. They would run Elkhart, but then they had towns like Columbus, Bloomington, some of these towns that they would just occasionally run, right? Not as regularly. Lafayette, and which was the home area of Bruiser. He was from Delphi, which is right next door to Lafayette. But there was in a lot of those. When you're talking Terre Haute, Muncie, they're college towns, so they were hitting a lot of college towns. Terre Haute and Muncie were big stops for them.
Now,
Fort Wayne was too.
Indianapolis, they ran on Saturdays. Do you remember what the schedule was at all?
No, they didn't really have, to my knowledge, from what I've seen, outside of Indianapolis, outside of Tuesday promo days for TV, it was not as set
So they
really
didn't
a schedule.
They didn't really have weekly towns like
No.
like the Southern Territory. So they just ran all their towns once a month.
Once a month.
Yeah.
And the
And
major towns. Yeah.
so it really wasn't even, they didn't really run spot shows. They just ran everything like once a month, and then maybe Indianapolis twice.
Yep. And it was Bruiser, whatever he could pick up, right? Later, he would do a lot of fair shows because they were easy to pick up.
Sure.
And so it's just wherever he could. He worked with a lot of organizations and things where if he could get someone to bring in what I would assume would, and I don't have any proof, but I would assume be kind of bot show type things.
Yeah.
He would do that. Right? Worked with a lot of organizations, but yeah, everything was monthly with the towns that he run regularly.
Now, a lot of 1975, Dick is not the champion for WWA. It's Ox Baker.
It is.
And so what are your memories of Ox?
Well, this, obviously Ox is not very mobile, but Ox is a menacing. One of the falsehoods about Dick the Bruiser that bothers me the most, because he held the WWA title 13 times or whatever it is. So a lot of people think, he always had himself on top, and that's not exactly true, because Dick was very good, very knowledgeable at knowing the money lay with him chasing the heel. He would have whoever the top heel was in 75. It was mostly Ox Baker, right? And a few years later, it was guys coming through, right? He had Ivan Koloff in. He had King Kong Brody in. There was always a major heel that would come in, take the title from Dick the Bruiser. Then there would be a series where Dick's trying to get it back. Eventually, Dick would. Then there would be the next heel that would come in. So Dick knew there was a lot to be said for that chase, which is why he held the title so many times, right? Because he would lose it. And this year it was Ox in 75. And Ox obviously Ox's work rate in 75 is not great, but he had the look.
It was better in 75 than it was in 81.
That's true.
When I later saw him in ICW,
that is definitely true. But Ox, he's a great heel. He was a great heel. And that's what Dick wanted. He wanted that monster menacing heel to come in, take the belt off of him, have a run so that Dick could chase him and eventually get it back. And then 75 was him, but Dick wasn't the one that ended up getting it back, right? There was other guys who would get their opportunities every now and again, but
75 was the year that Baker and Ernie Ladd had the big riot in Cleveland.
That's right.
And so the first card of the year in Indianapolis, January 25th, they draw 9,000 people. And the semi-main event is the World Heavyweight title match. Ox defeated Ernie Ladd by DQ.
Yep.
Did Ernie work there quite a bit?
He did. Ernie was one of those heels. Ernie had a run with the belt. Ernie was a tag champ with Baron von Raschke in Indianapolis as well. Yeah, he had a run there for quite a while, doing that same bit, right? He was the big monster heel that came in, took the belt, and there would be the chase. But Dick had his guys like that he knew, that he liked, and Ernie Ladd was definitely one of them.
The main event's a lumberjack match. Moose Sholak and Dick the Bruiser defeated the Legionnaires, which was the original team of Jacques Goulet here. It's Rene Goulet, right?
Sure.
And Private Don Fargo, which always cracks me up that
Yeah.
Don Fargo's a private.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody bought Don Fargo as a French Legionnaire, but it happened. And, but yeah, and 75 is that pivotal year for the Legionnaires because that's when the change happened.
Yeah,
with Fargo. So, but they were the dominant team. The Legionnaires were the dominant team for 75. And held the title for most of the year.
And then in St. Louis, they draw 11,314, where Dick is on top in the main event, facing Jack Briscoe for the NWA World title, and he gets a DQ, win the match with Jack. And then in Chicago, it's Ox Baker, and Dick gets counted out. Ox Baker went over by count out.
Yeah.
So he might not have necessarily gotten pinned, but he did put other guys over.
He did. Yeah, Dick would do that. He would put other guys over, try to keep himself strong. Again, it was all about the chase. I will forever say that Dick the Bruiser knew that the baby face, which was him, or even if it was someone else, that people would come to see the baby face chase the heel. He was one of those guys that bought into the heel champion with the baby face chasing. And if you look at it, heels held the title a lot, and for a majority of the time with a baby face chasing them. But yeah, he would do that, right? He would tease, "Oh, we're close," right? It was a count up. Dick should have had him, so that would get people to come back for the rematch.
In February, I don't have an attendance for this Indianapolis card, but in February, a couple of interesting matches here. They have a boxing match between Sam Menaker and Eddie Creechman, who is the Sheik's manager.
Sheik's manager, yeah.
And Sheik's in the main event in a cage match. Dick the Bruiser beat the Sheik that night.
Yeah.
On top.
Yeah. See, and it's, again, another one of those, right? They would get Sam Menaker involved. They did a thing with him, getting him involved with Heenan. They got a thing with him and Eddie Creechman.
I'd give anything for a tape of that.
Oh, that I'm telling you, that's one of my holy grails is that Bruiser Sheik cage match. And I believe, I don't know if this was the card. I believe Jim Cornette was at this card. He talks about being at a Bruiser Sheik cage match in Indianapolis, and I believe it was this one.
It might have been. I mean, because I think Jim's a year older than I am. So in 75, he would have been 13.
Yeah.
So he probably was a little more mobile by then.
Yeah.
Probably got his mom to take him.
Sure. Yeah, but I'd love to see that.
I'm not making fun of that. I had neighbors just down the road from where I live right now. I had neighbors just down the road that used to take me to Evansville every Wednesday night. So I would get rides to wrestling anytime I could.
However you could.
Also on this February card, the Legionnaires are defending the tag team titles against Moose Sholak and Wilbur Snyder, and the heels went over. I'm sure Moose probably got pinned.
Probably, yeah. Wilbur was one of those guys. Wilbur, again, the co-owner in Indianapolis. But Wilbur had the mindset of, I'm just going to lay back. He wasn't always in the main event. Wilbur was mostly used as a tag team wrestler. Mm-hmm. He had, I think 6 or 7 runs with 6 or 7 different partners as tag champs. So yeah, he put himself in that. And then when he got to a certain point and he was ready he just retired and sold out to Bruiser and went to California.
And then Ox Baker again defeated Ernie Ladd and retained the title. So Ernie does the job for Ox for the second month in a row. In March, we've got they draw 5,500, which might be their lowest crowd of the year. Yeah. There might have been something else going on at that time too, but the Legionnaires defeated Wilbur and Moose again for the tag team titles, and then on top, Ox now gets Dick in the championship match, and he beats him by countout. Probably looked a lot similar to the Chicago match they had.
Probably no different.
But they go 15 minutes. I mean, it's not a short match.
No. Yeah, and it's 15 minutes. I'm sure there was plenty of crowd working. I'm telling you, Ox Baker Dick the Bruiser match at 70. I bet there wasn't a lot of bumping.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sure you're probably right. But still, I mean, I want to give, the other thing I go back to, and this is in March as well, is that Ox is also on the Munchnick St. Louis cards. And Sam didn't really use guys who look like they couldn't get around. So he didn't, I'm going to use air quotes for those of you who are listening and not watching, but he didn't use old guys. He didn't use guys where fans had to really stretch to believe. I mean, that tells me Ox still getting around pretty good here if Sam was using.
Yeah. I would assume so. That's what made Dick the Bruiser always unique in St. Louis, right? He was a very different guy for St. Louis wrestling.
Oh yeah, Sam did not like brawling outside the ring.
Yeah,
and definitely if Dick was on the card, he was gonna brawl, and that meant nobody else was gonna brawl outside the ring.
Yeah, and Bruiser's. I mean, he's in St. Louis all the way up into the '80s. Making appearances. So, there's, he was that unique guy that got in there. But, again, back, to Indianapolis, 75, most people, they're not coming to see a wrestling match if it's Ox and Bruiser. They're coming to see a fight.
Yeah.
And a brawl.
Right, so, and blood, probably.
That's right, yeah.
So the second card in March in Indianapolis, Cowboy Bob Ellis beat Carl von Krupp by disqualification. Is this Carl? Who am I thinking about? Killer Carl? Is that the same?
I believe so.
Carl von Krupp? Is that him?
Yeah.
Okay.
To my knowledge, it's kind of peculiar him popping up in 75.
He couldn't work.
I don't think he was.
He couldn't work a lick, but I loved the way he looked. I loved his facial expressions. Krupp.
Yeah. It'll again. I don't think he was around there a lot in the mid 70s. So yeah, he's popping up. Whatever. I don't know, passing through for an appearance, but again, Cowboy Bob Ellis, a very underappreciated talent in my eyes.
He ought to be in the wrestling Hall of Fame.
Should be in every Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's. I mean, again, one of those guys, a victim to there not being enough tape to know what he accomplished, what he did, how extraordinary, innovative. The thing, he was a great talent, and here in 75, he's getting up there in age, but he had a great career.
This might have been my buddy Jim Lancaster. This might have been the highest place on the card he ever gotten, because he is wrestling Lou Thez here
Jim is
in the semi-main event. Yeah.
Wow, that's way to go,
cool.
Jim.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, Jim, I don't know how much you know about his career, but I mean, this guy's on some famous cards.
He is. Again, another underappreciated Midwest talent.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like Jim a lot.
Me too.
He's in the semi-main event, loses to Lou Thez. And in the main event, listen to this. Dick the Bruiser, Bruno Sammartino, and Pepper Gomez defeat Ox Baker, Fargo, and Goulet, the Legionnaires.
Wow, there you go. Yeah, there was. Yeah, I mean, Bruno came in to Indianapolis for Bruiser, right? They had a tag team title run at one point.
So let me ask you this question: Bruno did not draw well in St. Louis. Did he draw well in Indiana?
No. I don't think he caused a bump or anything, right? People probably loved, it was Bruno, but I don't think there was this big spike because Bruno Sammartino was on the card. I don't think he had that big of an impact to the numbers. But he was actually at one point coming in and lost the tag titles with Bruiser while he was in his second run as WWF champion.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so
I've seen pictures of them with the tag belts in the past.
Yep. But I don't think Bruno really, if you look at the numbers, probably had that much of an impact on the attendance. I don't think anybody they brought in really had a spike to the attendance. I think it was more, if there was a jump, it was probably more related to a match type, right? If they put a stipulation on a match or something like that. At this point, I don't think anybody they're bringing in is really making that big of an impact.
We go to April, and on top, so now the Dick the Bruiser Ox Baker feud goes to a Texas death match.
Yeah.
And it's a non-title, and Dick's going to go over. I'm curious, probably could find out with a little bit more research, but I wonder how many falls that thing went.
I don't know.
Because falls don't count. It's the guy that can't answer the 10 count, But they drew 9,100 people.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, right? You put a stipulation on a match. That's seems to be what would draw some people in. That again, they weren't coming to see a wrestling match. They were coming to see Ox and Dick fight, and that's what they wanted.
And then we go to May, and there's two cards in May. The first one, Wilbur, Snyder, and Lou Thez versus the Legionnaires for the tag titles on top. No Dick the Bruiser. I don't know. This they had this card at John Marshall High School.
Oh, okay.
So they must have been doing unique. A fundraiser or something.
Probably, yeah. But Snyder and Thez, what a team.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Dick and Ox are back in St. Louis in May. They draw almost 7,000 people. They're the semi-main event. Dick goes over on Ox with a Harley race as the Missouri champion, defeating Terry Funk on top. So then we go to June, and what do we got? The first card in June, Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher defeated the Legionnaires by disqualification, so there's no tag title change. And I think this might be the first time LaBeouf is with Goulet.
Yeah, what month is this again?
June.
Were we in May?
June.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, probably.
What happened with the change there, Dave?
Well, the talk is that Goulet and Fargo had a fight in the locker room, and Fargo walked out, quit, was done. And they brought in LaBeouf, which he'd already been around, right? He worked for Bruiser a lot, did lots of different gimmicks. He was actually in the WWF, did the Yukon, the Pierre, with part of the Lumberjacks. But he had done the Russian Stomper thing, the Igor Volkov. He had done lots of things for Dick previously and in the future. And he just, he was kind of a guy there, and he stepped in and just filled that spot. But the talk always is that Fargo and Goulet had a fight, had a disagreement of some sorts, and Fargo took off. So that was the end of that formation of the Legionnaires.
I always think about this guy and being in the Jaques territory, but on the card here, about third from the top is Ben Justice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, was Ben big in WWA?
Earlier he was more, a few years earlier, several years earlier, he was a little more of a attraction. I don't think he was ever a regular guy in Indianapolis, but probably one of those guys that Bruiser knew, got to know working in Detroit, and brought down some. A lot of those guys would come down every now and again.
There's another guy from Detroit too on here, or the guy he worked a lot in Detroit, Prince Pullins.
Yeah, another underappreciated talent. I wish there was more film of Prince. I mean, one had an extraordinary physique, was just, and everything else. But yeah, Prince Pullins worked a lot in Indianapolis, too, as well as Detroit. But these guys, they would do the shots for both. There was a lot of at this point, a lot of cooperation with the Sheik in Detroit until this was right after the war in Detroit, quote unquote, where Bruiser ran opposition.
And also on that first card in June, you got to really stretch your imagination for this one, but Ox Baker defeated Lou Thez for the, to keep the WWE.
Well,
quite a notch in Ox's belt there.
Yeah, I'm about to dive into that to see how I try to find some information on what happened there. Find somebody that saw that, because I wonder there had to have been shenanigans.
Must have been.
I can't imagine Lou taking a clean pin from Ox Baker.
Lou was doing a lot of things in 75 and 76. That he would never have done before.
True.
Because the guy was he needed the work and needed the cash, and it was a shame, really, because of his stature in the business.
Yep.
Those years from 75 to 80 probably would be better off erased from his his track record.
Yeah.
The second card in June, on top we got the Legionnaires defeating Dick and the Crusher. So the Crusher and Bruiser are facing the Legionnaires on both of the cards in June, and Legionnaires they're keeping them strong heels.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, this is kind of interesting too, because in a lot of companies in this era, you'd either have the heel be the singles champion and then the babyface tag champions, but Dick really put all the belts on all the heels.
Yeah. Again, I think he was. I think he was that proponent of that chase. And I said earlier, right? Not too many guys could come in and make it. Crusher was a guy. I don't know what he did with the attendance, but it would definitely be an impact when Dick brought in the Crusher, right? When he was bringing in his cousin to help out.
Drew a little over 7,000 for that.
Yeah. So if anybody probably had an impact in this area, it would have been when the Crusher would come in and team with Dick.
You have any idea what they would have made for that? What would Crusher get to come in for that?
No, I don't know. I've seen some payout sheets for Chicago in the past, but that's a whole different beast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And
I've
Vern,
not seen
if Vern was in charge of the payoffs, it was pretty generous, probably. I've always
probably
heard he
well,
was really good payoff guy.
yeah, and but there's been a lot of talk that Bruiser's not. That there's always been these tales that's why a few guys would have fallouts with him is he wasn't he wasn't generous in the pay no matter what. I mean that's why Bobby Heenan left, right? He managed the Sheik, in that match and was involved in that the Sheik Bruiser whole deal. Everybody there's this big card, big crowd. Everybody got a bump and pay, but Heenan got the same old thing, and that's when he said, fine, I'm gonna leave and go to Vern. So there's a lot of talk of that. I've heard a lot of guys say no, he was, but I don't know. I guess there's a perspective there.
Yeah,
but there is some evidence. I mean, he had a payout issue with Bruiser Brody one time that caused an issue in the locker room, and so there's definitely been some times where there's some payout issues with Dick the Bruiser.
The card has 8 matches on it, and about 19 guys working on the card.
Yeah,
2 of them in the top 2 matches though are owners, so they're going to get their large cut no matter what. So I'm sure Crusher did all right.
I bet he did. Yeah,
probably took care of him okay.
And again, right? They're filming these things for TV. That's why there's several matches a lot of times, and a lot of these guys are the lower card guys. Are helping on ring crew. Some of them, there'll be someone's driving the ring truck, like Mike Snyder. A lot of times, I don't know if he's on this card, but he would drive the ring truck or whoever. So there was always someone involved in that capacity. So a lot of these guys were multitasking.
Tell me about Bobby Bold Eagle.
Yeah, I think it's Bob Boyer. He was he was played that Native American role. He was a regular in Indianapolis for quite a while. Even again, he was probably getting up there in years at this time. In 75, I believe he's still alive. I've talked to his daughter a few times, but I don't think he's doing well.
No.
I think he's got. Yeah, I hate to say, I think he's got some issues. That's not doing well. I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to misspeak.
Sure,
but
of course.
But I have spoke to his daughter because he was one of those guys I tried to seek out. I wanted to talk to, and then when I made contact with his daughter, she's like, he's not in a condition where he could do that.
Yeah, too bad.
Yeah, but I do believe he is still alive.
He went to a time limit draw with Big Bill Miller. So
yeah. I mean, he was, Dick would moderately push him. He was in and out different times, and he was there a lot in Indianapolis.
So that brings us to July, and let's see here, July 19th at the Convention and Expo Center. We got a street fight with Dick the Bruiser and Ox the Baker. So they're keeping that program going. They got their top program. Sometimes when they do a stip match, then they don't put the title on the line.
Yeah.
I guess that's so Dick can go over.
Yeah.
And keep the title on Ox.
Yep.
And the Legionnaires beat Mike Snyder and Paul Christie.
Yeah. See, there you go. Mike Snyder, the son of Wilbur, was a good, again, another good young talent that really didn't get that opportunity to break up. Paul Christie had been around, right? He had a little bit of a stint in WWF through that magician thing.
Oh yeah, Paul was a great worker, and I just got his book. And,
I got that too. Many Faces of Paul Christie.
I have not had a chance to read it yet, but it's in my pile. And of course, I knew him when he came into ICW.
Yep,
and he came in with Bunny Love, and
his wife.
I'm really interested in his. I hope there's some things in the book about his Arizona territory years.
Sure. Yeah. Again, Paul was, he was a regular in Indianapolis as well. Held the tag title several times with different guys. Him and Bunny Love had a run. But I believe Bunny Love was probably the first female manager probably ever in WWA when she came on with Paul. But I know Paul passed away here not too long ago, a year or two.
Yeah, she's still around.
Bunny's still alive. I think Bunny's got a book out now.
Oh, good.
She has one. Yeah. So and Paul's another one of those guys that I wanted to talk to, but he just by the time I made contact and was he wasn't in a condition.
She is somebody I'd like to talk to sometime. Put her on.
Me too.
I'd like to put her on the show because she's not going to be on a lot of the other bigger podcasts, you know. But I'd love to visit with her about her book. Lou gets a win here. He beats Johnny Starr on the.
Oh yeah, good old Johnny Starr. Another right. Johnny Starr was will be known as the guy to replace Bobby Heenan. He was the guy they made that heel manager spot when Bobby left. And again, but Johnny Starr is a great talent, a lot of potential, but you're just not going to succeed when you're trying to fill the Bobby Heenan shoes. It's just not going to work, no matter how good you are. But he did, again, this time period, he's managing the Legionnaires a lot too.
John B. Davis, and he wasn't he wasn't really in the business that long, was he?
Nope, absolutely not. And I believe I think he's a preacher now.
Yeah, he's still around.
And I talked to some. He's been on my show, and everything else. But but he had a good run.
In Indianapolis. He's in the main event and semi-main event here a couple times, and he's only been in the business a year at this time. Right. Now, what year did Heenan leave?
70 was it 73? I believe. Mm-hmm. Sometime around there, where he's, and again, that's a big hole. That's a big hit because Heenan was the foil for Bruiser. No matter who Heenan managed. And at this time, Heenan was a bumping and bleeding machine. And this is the time period, right? Those Indianapolis years, the early 70s is where you get those famous magazine covers of Bobby with the crimson mask, because regularly Bruiser would bust him open. Mm-hmm. And when, like I said, when he left, they tried to have somebody fill it. It was Johnny Starr. And no matter how good you are, it's hard, right? You're going to always be compared to Bobby Heenan.
On the second card in August, we got a hooded Algerian death match. Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher beat the Legionnaires with no titles on the line. I don't know what
that has to do with anything. Who knows? I don't even know what that is.
That must be something to do with the Legionnaires being the French Foreign Legion.
I guess they would have lots of stuff like that. I mean, whatever popped into Bruiser's head. I mean, they would have Gestapo death matches and different. He would just come up with names for things. So
and he did the booking. Bruiser.
He did, yeah. I actually have copies of some of his books,
all right,
booking books, and where he's penciled in the cards and everything else. Yeah, everything seemingly fell on him.
That's amazing that stuff was still around. I'm glad you got those.
Yeah, I love scrolling through. It's fun, especially because it's just a planner, right? That he used every year. Sure. He'd get a new planner. The most, because I love it to cross-reference dates and see things, because I go on and look for articles and stuff, and a lot of times stuff doesn't pop up, but so I would look in the book and see these dates, which would help pinpoint things out. But the most fascinating part is when you get to some of the notes and the telephone numbers and some of the stuff that he would write in there and the contacts he would have for commissions and TV stations, and just it was amazing. And it always blows my mind to scroll through and see some of the phone numbers that he had, and it's fascinating stuff. Well, but from these books, it looks like Bruiser was doing it all.
Sometime, if you don't mind, just when you're thinking about it and you got a little time, just snap one of those pages and send it to me, just one or two of them, because I'd just like to see his handwriting.
Yeah, it's great because he would write down stuff, because you could tell he'd help get certain people book places too, right? Because certain dates, there wouldn't be like a card, but it would say, I don't know, whatever, just
Yeah, I've seen Jim Crockett's book, and it would say Dusty in Atlanta, or
stuff like that, or Paul Christie and whatever, Memphis or something like that.
Yeah,
where obviously he helped make that connection for him,
and he knew he wasn't going to be able to book him on his card.
Sure,
he lent him out or whatever.
And then obviously it'd have his cards written there, and then that's what helped me pinpoint down on these Tuesdays, right? Tuesday TV promos. He would write that, and sometimes he would have dates listed there, right under the TV promos of the dates he wanted to plug doing these promos. It's fascinating to see that stuff. It's like peeking in their mind.
Chuck O'Connor beat Wilbur Snyder, and if you don't know who
Big John
Chuck O'Connor is, Big John Stud, yep.
Big John Stud, yeah.
And Ox Baker defended the title, beating Big Bill Miller. Mm-hmm. And the hooded Algerian death match was on top, and it probably sounded like a great idea in Bruiser's head, but it only drew 5,500. So
yeah,
he's off about 5,000 people from his cards earlier in the year.
Yeah, probably. I mean, people probably didn't know what that was. Like, what's that even mean?
Or it's just, or maybe they just thought just Bruiser and Crusher are going to dominate.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
September, we've got a Gestapo death match.
There you go. Yeah, I knew it was coming up.
And in the Gestapo death match, the titles are on the line. And in fact, Bruiser and Crusher win the titles here on September the 20th in Indianapolis.
There you go. Yeah.
They had also earlier in the year, I should mention, they also earlier in the year won the AWA tag titles also.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, and Bruiser, I believe, hold them out through the rest of the year. Into 76. I don't think they drop them in the rest of the year, but
because they broke up the Bockwinkel Stevens team in AWA.
Yeah.
Ray had he had bought part of Terry Funk's interest in the Amarillo promotion, and he lived in Amarillo, and he was going to be focusing more on that. And then Vern was going to start Nick's push and put the title on Nick at the end of the year. So he put the AWA titles on Bruiser and Crusher, and now they're going to be like these wrestlers we see today that have 14 title belts around their waist.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, Nick Bockwinkel, Ray Stevens, another one of those teams that I wish there was more tape.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And but that's again an unfortunate thing. There's no more video.
Now, another unusual thing here on this September 20th card is Johnny Starr and Chuck O'Connor beat Wilbur Snyder in a 2-on-1 handicap match, and that almost never happens. Almost when you see a 2-on-1 handicap match, the one is typically going to win.
Sure,
right?
Yeah. But I don't know. They must have had.
It's the second biggest star in the company too.
Yeah, they must have had. I don't know. I don't know if they had something in mind trying to bring it back. Into October, I don't know. That's peculiar.
But Wilbur is a generous, giving guy.
Yeah. Wilbur. Yeah, Wilbur put anybody over. He would. Wilbur just did his thing. He was very laid back.
Now, what it might have led to is in October, we got a Texas death match with just Wilbur and Chuck O'Connor together, and Wilbur wins. So two of you beating up on me, but 1-on-1, I beat you or something.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. That's what I'm saying. It was setting up that match in October.
And then also in October, the Valiants make their debut.
Oh yeah.
So they're in against Bruiser and Crusher for the tag titles, and this would be a match that would be across into AWA also.
Yeah. It's remote, right? WWA. There's so many guys that got their start like that. I mean, the Valiants got started in the WWA. Mm-hmm. Bobby Heenan started in the WWA. Later in the waning years, Scott Steiner started in the WWA. The Blackjacks really got a big start in the WWA. There's a lot of these teams and talents.
I love the Blackjacks.
Me too. That formulated in the I was one of the few guys that when they tried to do the new Blackjacks, I was all about it.
Now, did the Valiants get over as well the second time around? After they went to the WWF and they had their big run there, didn't they came back here in 75?
Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, they had John, and John had a run as champion. But yeah, I think the Valiants were always.
Well, that's where he was when Jerry Jarrett, found him and brought him to Memphis after he split with Nick. He found Jimmy in Bruiser's territory.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, Bruiser always did the Valiant. He had John had a singles run there. Jerry Valiant was but that's John Hill. John Hill, quote unquote, Jerry Valiant had so many characters in WWA, so many different personalities over the years. Had title runs under different personalities. He was just a guy that was very versatile. And again, I keep saying this, but another underappreciated talent. He did a lot of things, right? I mean, a lot of people don't remember, but Jerry was part of that tag team championship team in the WWF because Jimmy
Right.
was, whatever, hurt, sick, whatever you want to say. So Jerry was there. But
we get into November. Ox is still the champion, and he defeats Pepper Gomez in a semi-main. This is, I think, Pepper's first couple of shows here. And then they come back on top with Dick and the Crusher as champions against the Valiants in a no DQ match. And they beat Jimmy and Johnny.
Yeah. And again, this, the Ox Pepper thing is setting up bigger stuff. I would assume, because it's leading to something. But Pepper again they really put him over at Indianapolis. He was he was a draw. He was a star, and Bruiser liked him.
Saturday after Thanksgiving, at the end of November on the 29th, Pepper Gomez beats Ox Baker, and Ox's title reign in '75 kind of comes to an end here. So tell me about Pepper Gomez's run with the title. Pepper, people like Pepper, but he was one of those, he wasn't going to carry the show. Even as champion, right? They had some of those guys, but people appreciate Pepper, right? That the man with the iron stomach, or however they build him, and they did that bit in Indianapolis as well. Whatever people, I don't know what all they did, right? Cars drive over his stomach, different things to sell that. But I don't think Pepper you would define as a draw as a champion, a guy who was going to make the show, bump the ratings. But he was kind of a popular guy that, was probably more what you would call an interim champion. Like I said, Dick, I think, always liked the hill guys with babies chasing him. But someone's got to break, in that, and there's got to be a run, and Pepper was the guy. I started to say, now he's done a complete reversal in booking the territory, because now all the belts are on the baby faces.
Sure.
And so that means Pepper's run's going to be short.
Which means, he's getting ready to set up the next heel. That's going to, heels, excuse me, that's going to come in and end up taking the titles, and then we're doing it all over again. That chase and all the gimmick matches and everything else.
And then on top, Dick and Crusher defeat the Legionnaires. So you got the Valiants in one card in November, and the second card in the Legionnaires. So he's mixing things up pretty good. In December, the first card in December, Pepper defeated Chuck O'Connor in his title defense. We have a wrestler known as the Strangler, who goes to a time limit draw with Wilbur. Is this the next big heel, maybe?
Well, yes, he is coming. And again, the Strangler is Mr. John Hill, Jerry Valiant. And yes, the Strangler ends up getting a title run, and ends up in a feud with Bruiser. And he is the next guy they're setting up to be the heel.
And then on top, we've got a cage match. Bruiser and Crusher beat the Legionnaires again. I mean, they're beating these guys in just about every kind of match you can imagine. Now here at the end of the year. Yeah.
And this is they're that's winding up, right? They're getting a few more stipulation matches out of it.
And then
that's the way Dick worked.
And then the last card of the year for 75. And this is something that's kind of interesting, because I think this is the first time I've seen women on the card this year. And it's some of my favorites. Cora Combs and Princess Jasmine. And actually Cora's daughter, Debbie's under a mask as Lady Satan, which is one of Cora's old alter egos back in the day. And some girl named Barbie Doll that I'm not familiar with. But,
I don't know who that is.
This is the first time I've seen girls all year. Did they work for Bruiser much?
They did, right? And especially in the 80s. He would have lots of Princess Jasmine, was trained by Prince Pullens. He had lots of ladies into the 80s, right? There was a female wrestler named Alice Cooper that would come in a lot.
Oh boy.
And
did she have makeup and snakes and
No. I don't know. Again, I don't know where Bruiser pulls some of these names from. I don't know. But up into as we're transitioning to the late 70s and 80s, he often had women's matches on the cards.
The Strangler goes over twice, so you can kind of tell it's for television. But he beats Prince Pullens, and then later on in the evening, he beats Sailor Art Thomas.
So another great talent.
They're putting Strangler over pretty good, which,
sure,
as you said, is Johnny Valiant.
Yep.
Pepper Gomez, Jerry Valiant. Sorry, Pepper Gomez retains the title again over Chuck O'Connor, and in the main event, the Legionnaires get a win, but it's by DQ. So Bruiser and Crusher keep the titles.
Yeah.
But man, what a great walk through 1975.
Yeah,
this has been a lot of fun.
It is. Yeah.
What else do you kind of remember about 75 here as we wind down?
Again, it's just it's one of their prime years, right? Those mid 70s were prime years for the WWA. Again, we were talking, right, drawing big crowds. A lot of these crowds are right in the 10,000 vicinity. When it drops, it's a surprise. It's an abnormality. But again, it's just Bruiser and his mentality of how he's doing it, doing the chase, using the stipulation matches. But little hot shot booking here and there. But that's the way he always booked, right? And that was, to me, from what I've understood by looking at this. A lot of people call Bruiser an egomaniac, and he had to be on top. But I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think he used him in the chase a lot, and others in the chase.
Well, again, you pointed this out earlier. I mean, some of that is bias from the video era.
It is,
because that's what they saw of him, and he was putting himself over at the end when maybe he shouldn't have been. But honestly, as we walked through the year, I mean, I'm somewhat of an analytic guy, and as we walked through that, I kind of thought he mixed the booking up pretty good throughout the year. I mean, he was mixing his heels in, and he was mixing the singles and the tag team matches in the semis and the mains, and he wasn't on every card. And he was elevating the mid card guy. He was moving guys up this side and bringing them down the other side.
Yep, it's a lot of pretty standard wrestling booking, right? You could tell, like there at the end, you can see he's building the Strangler to be that next champ or that next contender, the next challenger. Right, and he did that, right? You could see the guy he was building as the next heel or the next tag team contenders. It's pretty standard.
And to add some complexity to it, he was also, we just covered Indianapolis. I mean, he's booking a lot of other towns every week in Indiana.
Yeah.
I saw just randomly, I didn't bring it up, but he ran Champaign, Illinois one time.
Yeah.
And he's also performing on top in Chicago and St. Louis too, which I think adds quite a bit to it. I mean, he's traveling, being a guy on top, carrying the load for the company, doing all the booking, doing the business end of things. He got help from his wife too, didn't he? I mean, was she involved?
She did. She hated wrestling, but yes, technically, the company was in her and Wilbur's wife's name.
Yeah.
Right. They were the ones that had the license. But yeah, she did a lot of I'm sure the bookkeeping type stuff.
Yeah.
And involved like a lot of wives did at that time.
Well, as a lot of wrestling companies were, it was a family business. You know?
It definitely was. And and you spoke of it, right? He had son-in-laws. Spike Huber was a son-in-law. Scott Romer was Eddie Creechman was Saul Creechman, excuse me, was a son-in-law.
Yeah.
And there was these times like with Spike when he fell out with Bruiser's daughter and gone, and Dick would shift gears.
Sure.
But when they were in good, when they were in the family, like talking about Scott Romer, right? As Saul Creed, he drove the ring truck and did all that because Bruiser could rely on him because he was in the family.
Yeah.
And he knew that guy, he would be there. If he wasn't there, Dick knew where to find him. He lived next door to Dick.
That's right.
So yeah, and that's the way the territories worked. You had to lean on the guys you could depend on.
How much Jerry Jarrett's video man lived next door to him for years. I mean, I just walked over there for doing the TV show.
That's right.
Well, man, listen, this has been a lot of fun. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to visit with me. And I know our watchers and our viewers are going to love this because they're loving all our trips down 1975 with the various territories. And I couldn't think of anybody better for the WWA. So thank you so much for coming and visiting with us about it. Tell everybody where to find your show again.
It's pretty easy. Just look up Wrestling Nostalgia. It's on all the platforms. And you can find it there. You can look up Nostalgic Dave Dynasty. That's kind of what I go by. I'm on all the social media platforms. You can look up Nostalgic Dave Dynasty on YouTube, because not only do I have, I actually have multiple podcasts. Only one's wrestling.
Oh, okay. What do you do on the other ones?
Well, I actually, with one of my sons, I have a horror podcast, because we're horror movie fans.
Oh, good.
So we have that, and I actually have one that is a Ramones podcast, because I'm a huge fan of the Ramones. Yeah, so I have that, where I talk to a lot of people in that circle.
Yeah.
So those are out there.
My gosh, I used to, in the 70s, I bought all kinds of Cream magazines. And the Ramones were on a lot of them,
Yep. I love the Ramones. And but if you not only that, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, though, there is lots of WWA wrestling on there. I have lots of episodes, lots of stuff that nobody else, that I put out there originally, right? Because I have a lot of tapes that I have acquired, over the years, that I'm in the process of having converted. Most of them are late years Bruiser Bedlam wrestling.
So what's the oldest you have?
On my site, I have some going back to the 60s. I have 2 episodes with Chuck Marlowe as the host in black and white.
Nice. And what is that site?
You just look up Nostalgic Dave Dynasty on YouTube, or I think it's, you go to YouTube, it's The Dave Dynasty. I'm going to put
that on my big television tonight.
There you go. But I've got, again, a lot of WWA, a lot of stuff, a lot of from the 70s, but a lot that nobody else has. And I have a lot more. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at my tapes.
That's the thing, man. You go through and you talk about all this stuff for an hour and a half, and it's like, I want to see some now.
It is, right? Yeah, a lot of what we talked about from the 70s, from 75, it's on my YouTube.
Who you got coming up on your show?
Let's see. This week, my next episode coming up is a guy named Jordy Day. He did the new documentary that's out on Raven. And I talked to him about, it's pretty fascinating. I know it's a newer thing, but Raven to me is a fascinating character, because
Scott Levy,
he's the epitome to me of the bridge from old school to new.
Yeah.
And so he's a fascinating guy. The documentary is fascinating to see.
Nice.
But then I have a few other guys. I just had Max Payne on from late WWE. And again, I like guys like that, because a lot of people are like, Max Payne, that's weird, right? Why would you talk about? But he's got some really fascinating stories, and he's a guy that is not overexposed.
Yeah,
which is what I like. So
nice.
But I've got a lot of other guys that I'm obviously in the talks with, and hopefully we'll work out in the future. I don't want to really announce it. I'm one of those guys that until it's a sale deal, I don't like to jinx myself.
Yeah, well,
but I plan to bring back some of the old favorites. I wouldn't. I'm sure at some point, Jerry Graham Jr. will be back on the show, because I love talking to him.
Yeah, well, we've talked about me coming by. I hope I can come by sometime.
Sure, you'll be definitely. Yeah, we'll definitely have you on and talk something. Whatever it is.
Well, you pick something. Well, I can
whatever it is.
I can talk a little bit about everything. So
me too. Whatever. I love to talk about wrestling.
Me too.
I love to hear people tell stories. To me, the interviews that I do, it's about wrestling, and it's about the wrestling business, but it's also about the person and the personalities.
That's right.
And that's what I like. I like hearing their stories, and that's what I like. I love hearing it, and I like preserving it for history's sake.
Well, we've been going down 1975 in the WWA, the wrestling promotion owned by Dick the Bruiser and Wilbur Snyder, the year 1975. Yep. It's Wrestling Nostalgia with Dave Dynasty. He's been our guest tonight. Dave, thank you so much, man.
Absolutely. And I hope people will go out there and seek out more WWE, have a new appreciation for the WWA, because, again, it's not one to sleep on.
Dynasty. Wasn't that great? We walked through the entire year of 1975 in the WWA and hit all the high spots. And, man, the WWA was still very, very strong in 1975. They were still drawing a lot of people, as we covered there in the Indianapolis territory. And I hope you enjoyed that, because I really enjoyed talking to Dave today. He's a fantastic fella, and I hope we can have him back to talk about 1976 next year. I want to remind you, I'm working on a couple of books. I've been working on the Dory Funk Sr. book now for 3 years. Dory Funk Sr., the king of the Texas death matches. And I've got a couple of more interviews I'm still trying to put together, but I've already started the writing process. I've basically closed the research process. A couple of things come in here and there that I add to the research I already have. There's no way I can put all this research into this book, but I'm looking forward to getting the book finished, getting it to an editor, getting it formatted, and getting it in your hands next year in 2026, because right behind that, I'm working on the Jim Barnett book. And Jim Barnett, the Wizard of Professional Wrestling book that I'm working on, that's scheduled now for 2027. And I have a lot of research on that completed. I'm still discovering things about Mr. Barnett. Since I was on the Briscoe Bradshaw show, a lot of people have contacted me with information about Jim Barnett, and it just keeps coming in. I mean, he was a master of the pro wrestling business. He was the wizard. And so that book I have scheduled for 2027. So those are always works in progress. And actually, there are a couple more books that I want to do that I've actually kind of started that sort of are connected to the Dory Funk book and the Jim Barnett book that I also want to do. So we got a lot of things over the next 15 or 20 years to get to you. And thank you so much for all your support, because it really helps me out. Research is expensive. Going and doing the research and spending the time. I mean, there are only so many hours of the day. And if you give an hour to something, you don't give it to everything else. So I love it, though. I really enjoy the process. I really enjoy the writing. That's one of the reasons I started the Daily Chronicle, which is my wrestling history newsletter that you can subscribe to on Substack. It's absolutely no charge whatsoever. And you get that every single morning at 5 a.m. Central Time, 6 a.m. Eastern, and 4 Mountain, and 3 Pacific. And so we send that out every morning, and I write that newsletter every single day. And the reason I started that was I wanted to improve my writing skills. And the way to improve a skill set is you continually practice, you continually use it. And so I'm getting my 10,000 hours in writing. You know, it's 10,000 hours or 10 years, which I'm endeavoring to shorten by writing the Daily Chronicle every day and the other special pieces that I write in the Substack to sharpen up my writing skills. And it's helping me do a little bit better job in writing the books. And so you can also become a premium subscriber to my Substack for just $5 a month or $50 a year. And that helps me because it shows support for my work, and you're giving into the work I do as a wrestling historian. And I want you to know how much I appreciate that from all our premium subscribers. And I'm continually thinking about what can we do special for our premium subscribers that have been so generous with their hard-earned money to help support me as a wrestling historian. My social media channels are the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel Facebook group. You can also find us on YouTube for the video version of our podcast, Tony Richards Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel YouTube. It's Tony Richards 4 on X, formerly known as Twitter, and Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel at Substack. Okay, next week, guess what? Steve Verrier is going to be here, and he's going to talk about the Vancouver territory in 1975. And that's going to be great because he also has written a book about the Pacific Northwest. He's also written a book about Gene Kiniski, the NWA World Champion. And we cover some of those things, but our main focus is the Vancouver territory that Kiniski was a partner in. And we're going to cover the year of 1975. I think you'll enjoy it because there's just not a lot out there about the Vancouver territory. And those are the kinds of things that I like to do, things that maybe other people have overlooked or maybe they don't talk about much. And we put it here in the Time Tunnel. Also, next week, I'm going to be doing my second Q&A session. So 2 weeks ago, the Q&A went over really, really well, or that would be a week ago, but it'll be 2 weeks by the time I do the next one. Went over really, really well. I got so many great comments about it, so much great feedback, and people are still sending questions. So we'll do our second Q&A session on next week's show. So please post your questions on all my social media channels. You can also direct message those to me on social media if you want to remain anonymous, and I'll get those answered for you next week. Thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show today with Dave Dynasty, Steve Verrier in Vancouver, coming up next week here in the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel. I'm your host, Tony Richards, reminding you, if you want better neighbors, be a better neighbor. So long, everybody, from the Bluegrass State.
Thanks for tuning in to the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel podcast. Tune in for another great episode next week, interviewing wrestlers, referees, and media personalities that have made the sport of professional wrestling great. We'll release a new episode soon. Don't you dare miss it.